Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is ROMY Jurado. I'm an attorney here in South Florida. Today, I'm going to talk to you guys about investment visas and how you can use real estate in order to help your clients acquire different investment visas. I like to make my presentation really interactive. So if you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A or in the chat. I will follow up with everybody with an email, including my presentation, and hopefully I can answer all your questions. A little bit about me and my firm. My firm's name is called Jurado and Associates. We're a law firm here in Miami. We help clients in different areas of law, including, of course, immigration. We do probate, state planning all over the state of Florida, real estate closings. We do litigation. We do trademark. Let me see, and any type of business law, we help with that as well. We're fully bilingual. We speak English and Spanish, and a lot of our clients are international, but we also have local clients. All right, so let me get started by sharing my screen with everybody. Give me just 1 second, and thank you so much for joining me here today so early. 1 minute. Okay, perfect. Everybody should be able to see my presentation from there. If you don't, let me know, and let's get started. So investment visas. I'm going to talk to you guys about 3, which are the main investment visas. We have the L1 visa, the E2 visa, and the EB5 visa. The EB5 is actually very interesting because we had stopped it for a little bit, but now it's back on. So it's something that you guys can use to help your clients. So a lot of you guys are agents, real estate agents, and I want you to understand first, why is it that you should know about investment visas? You know, besides the fact that you can help your clients. Well, let me tell you, for immigration, right, everybody that's going to do a business is actually going to need workspace. Nowadays, with Corona, with everything that happened, I understand you can pretty much open up your laptop and your phone and you're in business. But for immigration purposes, that's not going to be enough. The immigration office wants to know that you have an actual location, that you have licenses and permits to run that location, to do whatever business it is that you want to do. And therefore, the first thing that our clients will need from their agents is to find adequate workspace. You know, and that workspace can be an office, a commercial office. It can be a warehouse. It can be the actual location of the store or the restaurant, but it has to be adequate commercial premises. And no, they cannot just run it out of their house or a property that they bought, because the first thing immigration is going to do when you give them the address of the business is, you know, research that business. And if they see it that it's inside a house, it's going to be a problem. So first things that my agents have to do for my clients is find them adequate commercial space, you know, whether it be an office, whether it be a warehouse, a restaurant, whatever it is, there has to be adequate commercial premises. Then clients are going to need a place to live. This is very true with investment visas. The way that it usually happens is they come in, they rent a location like temporary housing, maybe for a couple of months. And then as soon as they're set, they're ready to apply for the visa and they get approved. That is when they apply for a loan to buy a property as such. So with you guys as their agents, the first thing that you can do is help them find short-term housing. And then as soon as they get their visa approved, you can help them buy that real estate property that they want to live in. Also, clients may start a business that specializes in buying and selling real estate. I have done many investment visas for foreigners with businesses that deal with real estate. Let me give you some examples that I have done myself. So for example, clients can come in and buy a shopping plaza, and then their business can be managing that commercial shopping plaza. Clients can buy 6, 7 properties and put them on Airbnb, and their business can be managing real estate properties, managing rentals. Clients can buy houses that need work, fix them, and flip them. And their business can be, you know, buying and selling property. Clients can, let's see what else we have done. I had one client one time, he bought a bunch of different timeshares, and his business was managing timeshares. I have clients that actually come in and start a real estate brokerage business. You could start a real estate brokerage business as a foreigner. You can own a real estate brokerage as a foreigner. You will have to hire a qualified broker, but it is doable. So I have clients that have done that as well. So any business for immigration purposes will work as long as the client qualifies, be it the nationality, the investment amount, or the required number of employees that they need to hire. And then they're able to proceed and they're able to do this. So it's actually very interesting when clients ask me, well, what business can I do? I mean, it depends on the person, and what type of business they want to do as far as which visa they want to apply for and how many employees they want to hire, which I'm going to talk to you guys about that in a minute. Also, clients can buy an actual business, and you guys are real estate agents can assist them in finding that business. We do that a lot. We do a lot of business closings. So they can buy any business that's existing, use it, and apply for a visa. And I'll tell you which visa as well. Okay, so the first visa that I find really interesting that I like, it's called the L1 visa. The L1 visa allows a foreign national, so there's no discrimination here on country, any country, who has worked for 1 year out of the past 3 years in a company abroad, right? It allows for that company abroad to open a subsidiary in the United States and to send that foreign national to run the subsidiary in the United States. So what are some basic requirements? One, that the foreign national have worked for 1 year out of the past 3 years in a company abroad. Two, that the company abroad have a minimum, I would say, of at least 10 employees, and then half of them should have a college degree or university degree, because we want to qualify them as professionals. Then that business abroad should be doing business for at least 1 or 2 years. It should have a location. It should have all the permits and licenses to do business. It should have filed tax returns in their countries. Once we have that, then we can send the foreign national to the United States to establish a subsidiary here. So what do we need in the United States? Well, we need a qualifying relationship. That is something that we establish. When we form the US company for the company abroad, we will establish that either the foreign company owns 100% of the company here, or that it owns a majority interest of the company here, or that it has the same ownership in the same percentage, in order to qualify them and say that they have a qualifying relationship. That's the first step. Second, we have to show that the foreign national worked for 1 year out of the past 3 years abroad. How do we show that? Through payroll. So we are able to show that. Also, we have to show in the United States that that foreign national, it's going to have either an executive, manager, or it's going to be an employee with special knowledge. And how do we show that? Well, we have to show employees in the United States. For the L1 visa, we like to show that in the United States, you at least have, I would say, 8 employees, and half of them have university degrees. Now, the university degree does not have to be from here. It could be from abroad, but we do want to show that you do have employees with university degrees, okay? That's very important for the L1 visa. Also, in new offices, when we apply for an L1 visa, we have to show that we have sufficient physical premises. So what does that mean? If you're running a store, we want to show where is the executive going to be. He's not going to be there selling in the store. So do you have an office within the store? If it's a restaurant, the executive is not going to be serving the plates. So do you have an office within that restaurant? If it's any other business, do you have an office for that business? Do you have the licenses, the permits that are required to run that business? If you do, then we are in good shape. We also have to show that the position in the United States will be supported, like it's going to be a position that is going to be actually needed. And one way to show that, again, is through employees. It's so important for the L1 visa to have US employees. So if the foreigner says, well, I don't really want to manage that many employees, then the L1 visa is probably not going to work because we do need employees. We also need a business plan, and the business plan is going to be required for all the investment visas. The business plan must be detailed, must be realistic. It must contain information about the investment and precise the structure of the original foreign entity. We have to show how the foreign entity qualifies with the U.S. entity. We like to include roadmaps, description about the activity, market research, all of the operations, and all the licenses and permits for the company here. The great thing about the L1 visa is that the investment amount, it's really not that high. You could invest 150, 200,000, 300,000, depending on what the business itself requires. Also, the L1 visa does have a path to residency and eventual citizenship. So you come in with an L1 visa, you're going to get it for 1 year. We will have to renew for another year. But the great thing is that after that 1 year, after I've shown that you've worked abroad for 1 year, you've been sent to the US and worked here for 1 year, then we're able to apply for residency, which is called an EB1. So that foreign national that came here with a visa to work for the US company can eventually apply for residency. And that's going to include the foreign national, their spouse, and their children under 21. So everybody, it's going to be included in the residency package, and then everybody's going to be a citizen. So that's the great thing about this visa. With a minimum amount of investment, 150, 200, there is a path to residency. So any questions about L1 visa, let me know. If not, we're going to talk about my other favorite visa, which is the E2 visa. So the E2 visa allows a foreign national to come to the United States and start a business from scratch or acquire an existing business. The investment amount, we recommend at least $100,000, but we have done it for less and we have done it for a lot more. The business itself could be real estate, everything that I mentioned before, buying and selling, flipping, managing rental property, managing commercial space, all of that will work for an E2 visa. The investment, when I say $100,000, that means the business should cost that or more, and it does depend on the business. So if your plan is to open up a small cafeteria, $100,000 will likely be enough. But if your plan is to open up, a 5-star restaurant, $100,000 is not going to be enough. Here, we do look at the nationality of the foreign national. The foreign national should be one that has a nationality of one of the treaty countries. In the follow-up email I will send everybody, you will see that we have a link to all of the treaty countries. A lot of the European countries are treaty countries. Some of the South American countries are treaty countries. Some of the Central America countries are treaty countries. And what that means is that they have a treaty with the United States that allows E2 visas for their foreign nationals here in the United States. See, I think I have a question. Can you do co-working space? Okay, so for the E2 visa, not for the L1, for the E2 visa, you could rent an office in a co-working space. It could even be a virtual office, as long as you have all the licenses and permits required for that business. So for the E2 visa, yes, you could do co-working space, you could do virtual offices, no problem. We have done it, as long as you have the license and permits for that required business. So the E2 visa first requirement is that the alien or the person must be a national of a treaty country. It doesn't matter that they never lived there, that they only have a passport, that's fine. That's still going to qualify. And it's going to include the foreign national, their children, and their spouse. So as long as a foreign national has a nationality, the spouse or the children don't need it, and they're all going to be included in that E2 visa. Okay, so that's really interesting to know. So, and the investment, they say, must be substantial amount in a U.S. enterprise. What substantial amount means, it's really not clear, but it depends on the business. Like I was telling you, if you're buying a 5-star restaurant, substantial, we're talking about $1 million or so. If you're buying a small cafeteria, then it's probably going to be a lesser amount. Now, the foreign national must come to develop and direct the investment. So what does that mean? They have to be in control of the business. If we're doing one E2 visa for one family group, the foreign national should own at least 51%. This E2 visa allows for the foreign national to do 2 E2 visas on one business. So we can have 2 foreign nationals of the same country own 50-50, and then we can do 2 E2 visas. Okay, so you can do 1 E2 visa. And when I say one, I mean one familiar group. And again, the family group, it's going to be the investor, their spouse, and their children under 21. Or we can do 2 familiar groups, each investor owning 50-50 from the same country. So again, substantial amount, that depends. It's the cost of investment compared to the total cost. The investment must be large enough to ensure that the treaty investor's financial commitment, right? So they want to know that the business is going to go forward, that you have enough capital to make it go forward, and you have to prove that you're going to be directing the business, okay? So putting the money in the bank account, it's not investment for immigration purposes. Now, while the first step, it's probably going to be for us to open up the company and then for that company to have a U.S. bank account, putting the money in the bank, it's that investment for immigration purposes. The money does have to go in the bank, right? But then it has to be used for the business. So if they're buying an existing business, it's going to be used for the business because it's going to go towards the purchase. If they're starting a business from scratch, then they have to use all of that money to acquire the assets of the business, such as real estate, such as inventory, machinery. All of that has to be bought in order for us to qualify it as investment. See, I think I have another question. Can the money be a gift to the foreign national from someone in the U.S.? The money for the E2 visa can be a gift, can be a loan, but not secured in the business. So like a private loan, can be inheritance, no problem. Okay, so yes, the money can be a gift given to the foreign national by somebody in the US or anywhere, no problem. Okay, so the capital must be subject to loss if investment fails. What does that mean? Money has to be used for the business. So money in the bank, it's not considered investment for immigration purposes. The treaty investor must prove that the funds were not obtained from criminal activity. So we will have to show how the treaty investor obtained this money. And if it's a gift, we're going to have to show how did the person gifting this obtain the money. The investment enterprise cannot be marginal and must possess the potential to generate more than enough profit to provide for the living expenses of the investor. So what does that mean? Immigration wants us to create jobs. For an E-2 visa, I recommend a minimum of 2 jobs. The more, the merrier, but at least 2, because we don't want immigration to say that the investment is marginal and that it's only enough to provide for the investor and their family. We want immigration to say, yay, you're helping the US economy. And that is why we want to show that it's not marginal. So creating jobs is key. I would say 2 to 3 jobs for an E-2 visa. So how long do people get to stay? They get to stay 5 years. Depending on the country they're from, it can vary, but usually it's 5 years. That can be renewed. There's no limits on the renewal. The investor will have to work for the US company that we've used for the E-2 visa, but the spouse can go work wherever he or she wants. Their children under 21 can go to public school here or private school if they want. They can go to university here. And we can keep on renewing this visa. Now, keep in mind, once the children turn 21, they're no longer part of this. So we have to think of other options, maybe a student visa, maybe a work visa. It just depends. Or maybe then themselves are going to apply for an E-2 visa. So why would you want to be here on an E-2 visa? Because it's practical, to be honest. It's a lower investment amount, lower amount of employees. It's renewable, so you can keep on renewing. And now I'm sure you've heard, or maybe not, but a lot of the US embassies abroad, because of this corona issue, were delayed in granting visas. Well, we can do change of status for E-2 visas, and we can do other things. Now, while the E-2 visa itself doesn't have a path to residency, I can tell you that clients that came in with E-2 visas, their spouse ended up working for another company, and then that company did a labor certification and petitioned them for residency, and then they were all included in that package. Had the spouse not be able to work here because of the E-2 visa, she or he probably wouldn't have gotten that opportunity. So that's something interesting. Also, you can combine an E-2 visa with an EB-5 visa, which we're going to talk about right now. So any questions, please put them in the Q&A or the chat, and I'm going to proceed to talk about now about the EB-5 visa. The EB-5 visa is a visa that is straight into residency. So you will get a visa if you're abroad, or you can do change of status here, but you will get residency. It's an immigrant visa, so it's for residency, and the purpose is to stimulate the US economy through job creation and investment. Here we have a set of specific requirements, right? And there's 2 ways to do an EB-5 visa. One is the direct way, which is the creation of jobs, active involvement in the investment. So it's very similar to the other 2 investment visas. The other way is through a regional center. Regional center are private entities that have received a designation from immigration to receive foreign investor funds and then give it to qualified projects, okay? The advantage of working through a regional center is that you don't have to worry about job creation, that you can rely on their job formulas and you don't have to worry about job creation. Also, it does not require active involvement in the investment. So whereas for direct EB-5, you have to create 10 full-time jobs, you have to be actively involved in the business. For a regional center, you could pretty much give them your money, they're going to give it to a project, and you don't have to be actively involved, okay? So it just depends what the client wants to do. Let me see, I think I have another question. Where can I get to watch this again? I came late to class. I'm recording it, so if it comes out good, I will send everybody the link later. All right, EB-5 continues. So investment requirements, that recently changed. You know, before, way back when, we used to start with $500,000. Everybody knew it as a $500,000 visa. That's long gone. Right now, the requirement is actually $1,050,000. It's not $1,500,000. It's $1,050,000 in any area, okay? Or $800,000 in an area of low employment or a rural area. And the investment can be borrowed. So you can borrow this money to do this, okay? If you're doing direct EB-5, then you have to worry about the 10 full-time jobs. And what that means is you have to hire 10 full-time people working at least 35 hours per week. If not, if you're not doing direct EB-5, then you can rely on the project's job creation. When I say you could invest $800,000 in a rural area or high unemployment area, A rural area, it's any area outside of metropolitan statistical area or outside the boundary of a city or town having a population of $20,000 people or more, right? And then a high unemployment areas, an area experiencing unemployment of at least 150% of the national average rate. So if you show any of this too, or if you're doing it in a project, you will be able to invest $800,000. Otherwise, it's $1,050,000. What things have changed right now in the EB-5 is the fact that now we can do change of status, okay? So before we couldn't do change of status, now we can. So let me tell you a little bit about that. First of all, if you're outside of the United States and you apply for an EB-5 visa, that's going to be processed through a U.S. consulate, and it's going to take a little bit of time. Then you come in with a visa. That means you're going to get conditional residency for 2 years. And then in those 2 years, you have to remove the conditions by showing job creation or that the project went forward. If you are inside of the United States, if you came in with a student visa, with a visitor's visa, any type of visa, not visa waiver, visa, and you do EB-5 right now, we are able to do concurrent filing. We are able to apply for your residency within the United States, and you don't have to leave because you're doing an EB-5 visa. So this is an actual great change because before it wasn't like that. So if anybody wants to apply for residency and they're already here on a visa, we will have to wait a couple of months, but we can do a change of status and they can remain here. We can apply for a work permit. We could apply for a travel document. So all of that while being in the United States, and then you don't have to worry about the embassy abroad and how long it's taking. So that's something that's actually pretty cool with EB-5s that you can do right now that we couldn't do before. Now, you guys as realtors probably know a lot of different projects. I know that clients are always asking me for projects. I don't introduce them to projects. I introduce them to you guys so you guys can introduce them to projects. What I do perform is legal due diligence on the project to make sure that it qualifies for immigration purposes. Now, investing in a project, in an EB-5 project, it's like buying stock, right? Or investing in stock. So I do recommend them to speak to an investor advisor to see if the project is going to be funded, and because money is at risk there. That's one of the requirements of the visa. And I cannot tell them whether it's a good investment or not, and neither can you guys unless you have those type of licenses. So we always want to limit our liability and make sure that they're being counseled by people that are knowledgeable and that they have the respective securities license and such. So if they're going to do EB-5 through a project, I can do the legal due diligence. You guys can introduce them to the project, but we have to make sure that they are, represented or counseled by, I would say, a securities stockbroker, somebody that can tell them about the situation of investing in that particular project. I can look at the immigration perspective, and that's where I end. The EB-5 visa, it's a great visa if you have the money because it's straight shot into residency. It's going to include you, your spouse, and your children under 21. So if you come in and your child is about to turn 21, as long as we get this in before that happens, they're all going to be included as part of the visa. We do a lot of investor visas, and we help in actually the whole United States because immigration is federal law. So if you guys ever have a client that maybe they're not investing in Florida, but they're doing in some other states, we can still assist them. I work with a lot of business brokers and realtors, and really there's no distinction. You could sell businesses even as a realtor. So if you guys encounter that, that goes hand in hand with the investment visas. A lot of foreigners buy businesses here in order to apply for the visa. So let me see now if I have some questions. Okay. Is there a list of qualified regional center projects? I don't have, so the way that it works is the regional centers are the places that have received a designation from immigration to be able to fund projects. So in reality, what you need to introduce them to is the projects, right? So you guys have to do a little bit of research and see what projects are there. And if it's through regional center and projects, the project can be everywhere. So the investor can decide to live in Miami Beach and the project can be in Chicago, no problem. Somebody's asking me, EB-5 be a regional center. Is applicant and spouse or unmarried kids and spouse allowed to work legally in the other company? Okay, so when we apply for an EB-5 visa, we're going to apply as a whole for the applicant, the spouse, and the children. And the regional center means that the applicant can work anywhere. They will get a work permit. So the spouse will get a work permit. The applicant will get a work permit. The children, if they're over a certain age too, and then they could go work wherever they want, which is the great thing about doing the change of status while being here that before we couldn't do. Let me see. How much is your fee to start a real estate brokerage firm? Reach out to me, send me an email. Actually, I'll put my information here. And yes, we help realtors start their brokerages. We help all of that. Let me see if I can see here. So reach out to me and then I can tell you our fees. All right. I just put my contact information again. Let me see. Can an E2 visa be converted into an EB5 visa later? Yes. So this is how it's done, okay? So client comes in and they're like, Romy, I want to start a business, but I don't have a lot of cash right now. Eventually, I would like to be a resident. What do you think? All right. So then maybe they buy a restaurant, a small, right? And then later they start developing that, investing more money, hiring more people, acquiring other places. And now we've already invested $1.05 million and we already have 10 US employees. And guess what? Now we can apply for an EB5 visa using that same E2 qualifying investment. And that can be done in anywhere. I have clients that were buying land because their business was to become, developers. So they started with, a small piece of land and they kept on buying more, creating the jobs, and then boom, you go from E2 to EB5. So absolutely it could be done. A treaty country. If not, what is the other option? Okay, so I'm Peruvian, and sadly, Peru is not a treaty country. I wish it was, but Peruvians can apply for L1 visa. So if they have a company abroad that they work for and that company wants to establish a subsidiary here, we can do an L1 visa. We can also do EB5. So just because it's not a treaty country doesn't mean that you cannot do other investment visas. So EB5 and L1 visas are available for Peruvians. Does the investor need to create an LLC or any other company? For any of investment visas, the first thing that we're going to do is create a company. I usually recommend to create LLCs because corporations, you get taxed twice, and foreigners do not qualify for S-Corp status. So I usually would create an LLC for them and then use that business for the different investment visas. So yes, we will create an LLC. Would sisters qualify under one EB5? For immigration purposes, your family, now look, I'm Latin, I'm Hispanic. So for me, my family is everybody, my cousins, my nephews, my aunt, everybody, but not for immigration purposes. For immigration purposes, your family is you, your spouse, and your children, and your legally married spouse. If you're not married legally, it's not gonna count. So no, sadly, sisters do not together qualify for one EB5. They would each have to invest their amount of money and each qualify for their own EB5. So unless, of course, the parents are applying and the sisters are under 21, then yes, and not married, then they would qualify. Somebody's asking, if they have a lot and start building, they generate employment, can my clients apply? Yes, for an E2 visa, they could apply. For an EB5, yes, if we invest $1.05 million. So to answer you both questions, yes, they can, as long as it's an ongoing business and they invest the required amount. We could either do an E2 or an EB5, or we can do an E2 now and then later an EB5. Absolutely. Okay, somebody's telling me to answer a question, but I'm trying to see which question it is. Where can I watch this again? I came late to class. Oh, I'm recording it. So hopefully it'll come out good and then I can send it to you guys. What question? Let me see. Will the original investment for E2 visa apply for the EB5? Yes, it will. Because all the money that's invested, you can use for an EB5 as long as we document it, which we will, and we put it on the business plan, which will be stated, and all the money came out of the US bank account. All of that is documented and sent to immigration so we can qualify first for an E2 and then for an EB5. Italians apply for an E2 visa, absolutely. And I've done a lot of E2 visas for Brazilians. And even though Brazilians don't have the E2 treaty, a lot of them have Italian citizenship. So yes, we can do E2 visas for Italians. Can I borrow money from a United States bank to buy land, for example, and apply for a visa? No. So for investor visas, immigration wants the business to be, your money to be at risk. If you're borrowing money to buy the land, then your money's not at risk, is the bank's money. So no, you cannot do that to apply for an E2 visa. Okay, somebody's asking me consistency amount and operate as job creator like property manager, renters, am I correct? I'm not sure I understand the question, but the amount of money required for the business, it depends on the type of business, so if you're going to manage a lot of properties, maybe more is required. If you're just going to manage a couple, it just depends. Thank you. Okay, is the purchase residential real estate considered investment on EB5 or EB2? Okay, so let me explain. Can you buy residential real estate and apply for a visa? Yes, but you have to make it into a business. So if you buy 6 apartments and you're managing them, then that's property managing. So yes, that could be for a visa. If you buy, I had clients that buy, let me see, more residential houses and you're fixing them, right? So you bought the house, you fixed it, you sold it. Yes, that could qualify for a visa. If you're buying property and or if you're buying land and you're developing, okay, that's a business. That could qualify for a visa. If you're just buying one-off apartment, it's not really a business, right? So how do you create jobs there? So yes, residential real estate could work for an investor visa, but you have to make it into an actual business. If you do that, then you can use it for a visa. Okay, I will send everybody the follow-up email with the link to where I have all the treaty countries. I will also include my presentation and hopefully a video of this if it comes out good, because sometimes we have issues. Let's see, I don't see any more questions. Let me take a look. Oh no, wait, let me see. Okay, so I did put in my contact information there. You can find me all over the place with my name, ROMY Jurado. And I'm going to put my website here too, in case you guys have any further questions. Any more questions? Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for attending to today's class. I don't see any more questions. I know you guys are really busy. I hope you go out there and make a lot of money, and hopefully we can work together in any of your deals or transactions. Again, my office is here in Miami, but we serve globally, so don't let that be a problem. We can help your clients in real estate, probate, immigration, litigation, trademarks, business law, and we're here to be a resource. So if you guys have any question, feel free to reach out to me through email, phone, social media. I really hope that we can get to work together. Thank you so much for coming to today's class. Bye-bye.